Yeah, so I came up with the opportunity as I was interviewing for a new role. All of these venture funds asked me to pitch a business, so I pitched Bev, which is the company I invested in. It's a direct-to-consumer rosé. Basically, all of them loved the founder, loved the company, but weren't allowed to invest in it because it was alcohol, and found out that they weren't allowed to invest in any of the categories that I thought was most exciting. So then from there, I saw a huge white space for opportunity, and that's when I decided to launch the fund.
So how did you, if investors weren't allowed to invest in the companies that you were pitching, how did you get around that?
I went to investors that were also excited about the opportunity. So we emailed over 500 people in order to raise the fund.
And you've got some interest from some big names, as we just mentioned,
Yes.
like Bradley Tusk and Mark Andreessen. Is that because an Andreessen can't do so through Andreessen Horowitz, his major fund? So you're seeing an opportunity in VCs who can't touch the space but can go through your fund to do so?
I think that's a lot of the reason why some investors invested. They're also really excited about the thesis and my ability to execute on that thesis.
Cannabis to me feels almost picked over at this point. It probably isn't, but there's been so much money rushing into so many different companies there. Of that group, is there one in particular or two that you're more excited about than others?
There's two that we're super excited about. One is cannabis brands. We've seen a lot of money pile into ancillary businesses or into farming businesses. So we're excited about that. And then we're also super excited about harm reduction, nicotine. And we see basically a lot of e-cigarettes taking the market and creating a new type of addiction, and then these companies coming in and helping them overcome that.
So you take a company like Juul, right, valued at $38 billion. That seems to suggest that some of these companies are having no problem raising money. So where exactly is the opportunity?
So that's the issue, is that in the very beginning, in the nascent stages, when these companies are less than $10 million, they have a very hard time fundraising and have to go to a lot of family offices, have to go to a lot of individual investors, and there's not many actual funds that will touch them in the beginning. As they get later and later in their cycle, it's much easier to acquire funding.
What do you see as your average investment? What do you anticipate it will be? How large would you like your portfolio to be in terms of actual investments?
Yeah, so that's a difficult answer to answer just because we're very sensitive to deal dynamics. So we see anywhere between 1 million and 100K.
So you just talked about cannabis, you've talked about vaping, but in general, what constitutes a vice? And I ask that because the argument could be made that there's even some tech companies, gaming, for example, that are seen as addictive and thus a vice.
So that's actually part of Vice Ventures is gaming. But basically it's a bigger question overall because you kind of decide like who gets to decide what a vice is and who gets to decide what a vice clause is.
And on that note too, I read your Medium post and it sounded like you were kind of throwing some shade at Google. I don't know if I'm correct here, but you said not being evil should be about more than the product the company produces. Were you sort of singling out Google, Alphabet rather, and some of the big tech giants who are seen very differently these days as, you know, having some vices themselves in a different way?
So we were basically more trying to say that it's really hard to determine what is good and what is evil. And a lot of things that go out and try and be good are actually evil and don't do the best things.
What is sex tech?
Sex tech is sexual technology, which is defined by sex toys, by virtual reality porn, by sex dolls, and by other sexual technical advances.
Is that really an area that you can actually find investment opportunities in right now?
Absolutely, yeah.
What's the most exciting area? If you can pull up that wall again, that image that we showed, you've got cannabis, alcohol, sex tech, CBD, esports, gambling. What's hottest right now?
I like harm-reduced nicotine. I think that's the hottest, for sure.
And why is esports considered vice?
Because it's wildly addicting.
It is?
Neurologically, absolutely.
So here's what I'm wondering. Why have investors been so excited about this as you raise the money? Because historically, vice stocks have been stocks that performed well, for example, in downturns. They've been seen as somewhat defensive.
Yeah, so I think that's exactly why they are excited about it, is because it's the only kind of recession-proof venture investment. Because even if, for example, we go into a downturn and a lot of consumer companies fail, a lot of cash-rich vice companies will come in and acquire these businesses.
So you're filling an opportunity that you saw, but do you have the expertise to layer over it? I mean, it's one thing to sort of see an opportunity to raise AUM. It's another thing to actually invest it well.
I think I can, absolutely.
Why?
I've learned some pretty incredible investors. And I've also made some investments myself that have done very well.
Is your strategy hands-on, or do you just give the money and then kind of step away? Are you looking to sort of, and make sure that they're on track, right? It's kind of risky business if you're talking about vices. You want to make sure, as you said in your thesis, that they're morally on track as well.
Yeah, so we're as hands-on as our founders want us to be. So for example, Recess, which is a CBD sparkling water, we were very hands-on and we're very, very close with that founder.